It is the biggest ice storm outside right now. It is literally, when I took Tinley out this morning, it's like pouring ice. I've gotten several messages, which I did not expect, about my journaling practice and like gratitude practice. So I know that gratitude journaling is an actual practice, and I don't technically do that, and I don't technically have a gratitude journal. My interest in journaling came about because, and I don't have the book with me, but it's called The Life and Death of Emily Gillespie, and it's the diaries of Emily Gillespie from age 20 to the day that she died. And she would write in her diary almost every day, from before she was married, through meeting her husband, through the beginning years as a couple, through having their kids and the kids growing up, all the way until her deathbed. And her last journal entry was literally on her deathbed. And her diary and her writings are from the 1800s. And it was just really interesting to me to read about her life. So that was the book that initially sparked my interest in historical journals, and then I have read so many historical journals since then. There are journals from the Titanic, there are journals from the Mayflower, there are journals from the 1700s. I love reading them all and finding like the common theme in them. What you find when reading these historical journals is that life really has not changed at all. Whatever troubles you're going through, people have gone through much worse and come out so much stronger. Through those historical journals, that's where I gain my perspective, and I think I gain my clarity. So I love just picking these up and reading them. I'll read them throughout the day. I'll read them at night. I'll just like read a couple entries before I go to bed. Like I said, they just really put my life into perspective and like my day-to-day compared to what I read about some of the other day-to-days that have happened throughout time. It's just interesting to me. I have the Diary of Samuel Pepys, the Journals of James Boswell. This is from 1762 to 1795. But the Life and Death of Emily Gillespie is obviously one of my favorites too, because it's a girl and she was a housewife on a farm in Iowa in the 1800s. So her life wasn't extraordinary like some of these other historical writers had very extraordinary lives. Emily's life was not extraordinary, and my life is not extremely extraordinary. So that's really my main practice, is reading the historical journals. I'll like read an entry at night, and then at night I will also make my own entry of what I did that day. So it's not a guided journal that I do. For 2020, I kind of screwed up. So for 2020, I ended up wanting to get this 5-year journal because I thought it would be cool to have my daily writings in a 5-year form. I actually got 2 of these so that I can have a 10-year time span of 2020 to 2030 in the form of 2 of the same book. But I actually messed up because I misplaced these 2 books when 2020 started, and so I actually was using this calendar book, which I did in 2017, 18, 19, and a little bit before that too, but not every single day before. It wasn't until like 2016 I started doing like every single day. So in 2020 I just kept doing the calendar method that I was doing before. You've got your calendar on like these days, and then each day where people would typically write out what their to-do list was or their appointments that day or something, I at night would go back and just write like a little 5-sentence blurb of the events that happened that day. This also came in handy when I was dating this guy who was like trying to tell me that things happened that didn't happen, and I was like, no, that didn't happen. I write down everything that happens. So it's also helpful to try to like challenge any narcissist in your life or liar. Anyways, that's just a side note. So 2020, I ended up writing in this book primarily, and now that it's New Year's, I'm transferring everything. I'm literally rewriting every day in this book because I want a 2020 through 2030 complete book throughout the year, I've kind of gone back and just started like rewriting the days in this book. So you have like each day at the top, and then you put in the year, and I also put in the day of the week in this box just for reference. The day of the week and the year, and then each date you would have a different year. Say I have Monday 2020 here, and then I would have like Tuesday 2021 here. And then you can look back and see each day what you were doing on this October 7th day for the last 5 years. So I think it's really cool, just another way to add that perspective of how series of events come together. And I don't really write anything, I don't write like, I'm grateful for blah, blah, blah. Or I don't write like, my goal for tomorrow is blah, blah, blah. Or like, today I felt blah, blah, blah. I don't really write like that, but I just write what happened that day. Through writing just the series of events of every day, when you go back and read it, it tells quite a story. So I'm just gonna choose like a random entry from February. On February 7th, I said, today was BD5 at work, the day before we closed the books, so was very busy, but still had time to plan my cloffice build, because that's when I was building the closet office in my condo. So then I say I went through all of my Amazon orders and made a project timeline and surfed the web for tips on using a drill and making a desk. Also wrote a eulogy for a family member, and I say I have to make a video of me reading it because I was gonna make a video eulogy and send it. Came home and started in on hanging the 25-foot extension cord into the closet, but it was too short. I also took the closet door off, so I'm feeling very prepared to start the project. And then later on in March, obviously coronavirus hits, and then the work from home starts. So it's not until I go back and read each day in a sequence that I realize that God really led me to want to build a closet office in my house. Like, I had no place that I could have worked from home. So the fact that I even came up with the idea to build an office in my closet was kind of a weird idea, and I was so motivated. Like, I read these entries and I was so motivated to build this closet office, and then coronavirus hits and it ends up being something that quite of a lifesaver. The additional stress that I would have had trying to figure out how to have a home set up in the condo with everything else that was happening with my family at that time, it would have been very stressful. So it's the little things like that that I go back and read, and I look for the signs of God in each day, even though I didn't know about the signs at the time. So that's where I like writing. I'll just write what happened that day, but then when I go back, that's where I see the little signs from heaven, like the little sprinkles of, this is how I'm guiding you. Another example of looking for signs and things like that, this would have been from last year, so I don't have the 2019 book with me, but I was writing about how I met Tinley. So I met Tinley on a certain day, and then 3 days later was her adoption day, but not intentionally. There were like logistical issues. Anyways, her adoption day ended up being the day of my grandfather, who passed away when I was little, but I always felt like a really strong bond with him. So when you read the 2019 book, I write about meeting her, I write about how her adoption day has to get pushed back, then I write about her adoption day, and then I write about how I didn't realize that it was Papu's birthday until later. I write about her whole journey to her diagnosis of having the ectopic ureter, and I write on the day when the vet told me that her left kidney had to be removed. I did write in one of those days, like, I just don't understand it. Like, I thought that all the stars were aligning, like she came on his birthday and now this horrible thing with her kidney, thinking, why would God give me a dog just to like give me a dog that I have to put down? Because at the time we thought we would have to put her down. Well, then I write on the day that we found the specialist and how the specialist had a cancellation and could get us in like the next day, so we didn't have to wait to see the specialist. So then I write on the day we met the specialist. Then I write about how the specialist says, no, we don't need to put her down and we don't need to remove her kidney. We can do this other surgery and possibly save her kidney. And I write about on that day how the specialist, the vet specialist, kept saying over and over, dogs are like humans. They can live years and years on one kidney. And she said that like 7 times. And I write on that day, like, I didn't even know that humans had 2 kidneys. Like, I really didn't. I'm an accountant. And I write about how she showed us all of like the diagrams of the dog anatomy and how she kept repeating how the dog anatomy was the same as the human anatomy. So when I go back and I read those days in 2019, and then given everything that happened in 2020 with my dad and having like, not like exactly the same issue, but like still the kidney and the anatomy and all of that, it just gives me so much comfort going back and reading the series of events and seeing that like she came on Papu's birthday and then she had all of those health problems. And through learning about her health issues, it helped me to understand when my dad was diagnosed with his issues. It helped me understand the human anatomy. And even though because of coronavirus, I couldn't be in the doctor's offices with him, hearing the doctors explain to him like the anatomy and all of that, I still understood what was happening because I was in the room with the dog specialist, and the dog specialist explained it all to me. And it's things like that where just writing what happened that day, you don't have to put in any extra flair, just writing the series of events. You can go back and see, it like gives me chills to go back and read the series of events from year after year after year and seeing how the universe and how God works. Through that, you see how he works in mysterious ways, and it just brings so much comfort that then no matter what happens today or no matter what's going to happen tomorrow, I know that whatever's going to happen, whatever series of events I'm going to write down, are predestined, are part of God's plan. He knows about them before they're going to happen. I have proof of it. So it's not necessarily trying to focus on today and like, what am I grateful for today? And trying to, find all of that in one day. I don't think you can. But if you look at the big picture and you look at historical journals and you look at the series of events of the world and of our country and of these amazing people who are able to write each day for their entire lives, you see the series of events here, you see the series of events here, and through that process, I think it brings an immense sense of peace and gratitude and a love for God's plan. I guess that's it. That's really my method of journaling and tracking like the series of events in our lives. It honestly takes not more than 5 minutes at the end of the day. I do it as soon as I'm in bed for the night, or if I miss it at night, then I'll write about the previous day. I'll write in the previous day the next morning when I'm having like my morning coffee or something. But it takes less than 5 minutes. I use the same pen. It's a Pilot pen. I can link the type of pen that I use below because it writes really well and I have a really consistent handwriting then. And I think that it looks really pretty to have the same type of penmanship each day. And I've used the same pens in my books since like 2017. So it's kind of cool to go back through like years and years and see the same handwriting. And I think it will look really pretty in these books to have each year be in the same type of pen. So I'll link the type of pen below. I will also link these 5-year journals because I think they're really cool. I will also link this calendar book that I've got here that I have used. I've used this type of calendar book for the last several years because it's got a lot of space in the days to write whatever you want to write. And I will also link some of my favorite historical journals because when I have time at night, if I'm too tired, I won't do it. I'll just write in this the next day. But a typical night for me will be first writing down my day, reading yesterday, and then I'll go back and read an entry from one of my historical journals, which just adds added perspective to my day and to the world. Understanding people's lives before me, and then understanding my life and my series of events, and then tying that into God and the stars and the moon and everything. And that's where I think everything comes together, and that's where the gratitude and the peace comes from. But it's a practice. It's definitely a practice. You have to think about these things every day, and you have to respect those series of events every day. So that's that, and I hope that everybody has a blessed 2021. Right, Tim? She does too.